Hi there, I'm Max Kaiser. This is the Kaiser Report. Yeah, we keep moving on down the trail, doggies. Stacy?
Max, do you remember under Nixon, President Nixon?
It sounds like a David Bowie song. Do you remember your President Nixon?
Well, remember he had the madman policy. He acted like a madman against the Soviet Union and other communist states at that time. He believed that the madman policy would scare them so much that, you know, this guy Nixon might nuke you all. And, well, Kissinger used to go over to, North Korea and say, you know, we're afraid of Nixon. He's so crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. I hope you guys come to settle this.
He's crazy. He's going to swing around the button. Watch out. He's going to blow everybody up. It's Richard Nixon, and he's nuts.
Yes, of course, and I think they made a film about that. And here's a tweet from Zero Hedge. Craziness becoming strategic. NATO leaders in panic mode ahead of Trump visit. Of course, Trump is over there visiting as we speak, and the people are, well, it's hard to tell who's crazier, Trump or the protesters. But nevertheless, here's a quote. We used to roll our eyes at Trump's policies, but now we are seeing the craziness becoming strategic. A senior EU diplomat told Reuters, we now have to seek out all kinds of partners to further our goals. So this comes after his, quite a memorable speech in front of a big crowd in America where he was like dissing NATO and calling them freeloaders and basically and saying what's wrong with being friends with China and Russia.
Before the election, I said Trump was a change agent, right? So that is a nice way to say he's crazy. And, you know, he's going to go into any situation and just overturn the table and say, let's start from scratch, which is exactly what is needed for the United States, because the United States was very poorly positioned to head into the 21st century. So we needed a guy like Trump to come in there and just, you know, knock over all the pieces on the chessboard and start playing checkers. And start all over again. And so that's what he's doing. And NATO is on notice. It's a bloated bureaucracy. It doesn't really do much for anybody except themselves, like all these big multinational globalist institutions. And bully for Donald Trump.
Certain the weapons dealers, and we had talked about that, they were concerned about peace breaking out in the world, of course, because then they don't sell weapons and there's no reason to stockpile them. But if we've had decades of diplomacy and polite language where our president said, oh, really, you NATO people should spend more of your budget on military and defense, and instead of the U.S. basically providing the entire budget for NATO. And it never works. So here he's coming in like, calling them out publicly. So this, after Trump continued his theme in recent remarks of NATO allies freeloading for not paying their dues and treating the U.S. like schmucks, and further that NATO...
What? Wait a minute. Is that the quote?
Yeah.
What?
He said that NATO was treating the U.S. like schmucks.
Trump said NATO's treating America like schmucks.
Yes.
Now, that's a New York kind of Yiddish, Lower East Side, in-your-face kind of thing, isn't it? I love that. I love that about this guy.
And then further, he also said that NATO is as bad as NAFTA. Lately, he's repeatedly berated other member states for not living up to a 2014 pledge to reach 2% of GDP on defense by 2024. Only 3 European countries have reached that mark. He's expected to urge other governments of the alliance to dramatically increase military spend and lower import tariffs. Quote, this is what he said to the crowd, Max. I'm going to tell NATO, you've got to start paying your bills. Yeah. The United States is not going to take care of everything. Trump confidently told a rally in Montana last week, we are the schmucks that are paying for the whole thing. They kill us on trade.
Absolutely. He's brilliant. He's correct. And that's what we need. And that's what I've said all along, is that all of these rotting institutions, especially in the Eurozone and NATO. NATO is, they have their own crazy man policy. They point to Russia and say they're crazy, so we got to build up arms against this crazy actor in the world. Of course, that's false. Everyone went to the World Cup. They can see that frickin' Russia's like, the Shangri-La, where people are happy and eating borscht and playing football.
Don't sound too much like that North Korean presenter.
I mean, what's the deal, man? I mean, they're just out there, selling stuff.
Yeah.
It's a consumer economy.
You're You're right, however, that NATO does act like, okay, they use the madman policy against their enemies. They say that their enemies are madmen and we can't trust them and we need, therefore, to build up our defense. So here they said, Trump said to the crowd, he said, getting along with Russia and getting along with China and getting along with other countries is a good thing, not a bad thing. But of course, it is 100% a bad thing for the military-industrial complex and for those listed on the stock exchange. Of course, this has both CNN pundits and NATO diplomats in full panic mode, as Reuters notes, quote, 2 senior NATO diplomats told Reuters they are prepared for a worst-case scenario, that Trump would announce a freeze on U.S. military exercises or withdraw troops from the Baltics in a gesture to Putin.
Yeah, well, I said that.
That's the madman policy in reverse.
Well,
this is what they're saying.
That's what I said. I said that Trump looked at the balance sheet of America when he came in. He said the military budget's too high. The easy win is to pull out of South Korea and make peace with North Korea. That's what he's doing. Another easy win, to pull out of NATO, because having 50,000 troops in America, in Germany, makes no sense. And then he's going to make peace in the Middle East. Why? To save money. Why? Because he's a New Yorker. Why? Because he doesn't want to be a schmuck. Okay? It's so freaking easy. Just look at the balance sheet. I don't want to be a schmuck. If you go to the poker game and you're the one, you don't know who the schmuck is or the loser, it's you. Trump sat down to all these international organizations and say, okay, who at the table is a big loser? If you don't know, it's you. He's like, America shouldn't be the big loser.
I think schmuck also goes with my tweet about this, because I responded to this madman policy thing as madman policy has been official U.S. foreign policy since we went off the gold standard. It's the only way to keep other nations scared enough to keep using the dollar. So it's also, I think, Trump playing up this big, like, I'm trying to save money, I'm trying to save money. It's in order to maintain the illusion that he needs to save money, that the United States needs to save money, and they need to make sure that they don't spend too much because this has value and it's as good as gold.
Well, he's like Crazy Eddie. If you remember Crazy Eddie from New York, he would be selling stereo equipment. His prices are insane. So, like, Trump goes to these institutions and he says, look, we're going to save you like $30 billion. You just put away the nukes, put away all your hardware. Kill these publicly listed defense contractor stocks, okay? Martin Marietta, Lockheed, those stocks are going to get crushed because those guys are going to be out selling hot dogs out in Coney Island to make a living. We don't need all that bloat in the American economy. They're gone. As soon as he gets rid of those guys, he's going to go take a scalpel to the health industry and slash those guys, okay? Wow. The stock market could get crushed, but wages in America are going to go up.
Didn't Crazy Eddie end up in jail?
Yes, for fraud. Eddie Arcara, I believe his name is.
Right. So anyway, so now we're going to move on to crazy man and farts, okay? Because
of course, that's a natural segue.
It's a natural segue, and I know in our second half you interviewed 15-year-old Oliver Morris. So when he watches this, he'll be able to get some giggles out of us saying fart. The headline is, Fart Bill indicates Trump's intention to dump WTO report. So I believe this is from Dow Jones Market Watch, so I can say fart because it's from their headline, right? The Trump administration has crafted a draft bill ordered by the president that would declare America's abandonment of World Trade Organization rules, according to Axios, which said over the weekend that it obtained a leaked copy of the proposal. The bill essentially provides President Donald Trump, who has argued for a better position for the U.S. in big trade pacts, a license to raise U.S. tariffs at will without congressional consent and largely outside of the international rules governed by the WTO. The bill is titled the United States Fair and Reciprocal Trade Act, or FART, as it's being called. The consensus is that it won't make it through the Congress, but it's him acting like a madman to Congress is that I'm going to fart on the world.
Well, you shouldn't withhold your fart. It's not good for your health. They should just let it go. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not good health, good colon health. Just let it go. Let it rip.
Well, what do you think about this policy of introducing this notion that the president can impose at will tariffs rather than have to go through the U.S. Congress?
Well, once again, the idea here is that Trump is just slashing and burning his way through everything. I said it also when Trump got elected that this would be a test of the U.S. Constitution.
It would be an acid test.
An acid test of the U.S. Constitution. So, I mean, this is what he's doing. He's pushing the Constitution to the very edge and really forcing Congress and the American people to either go to court and defend the Constitution or rewrite the Constitution. But he believes that America was on the precipice of completely being annihilated in global trade and being eviscerated from the face of the earth. And so he's taking policies to protect America, make America great again. And he's not taking any prisoners. He's just, it's a scorched earth policy. He'll go, he's the My Lai incident of presidents. He'll just go in there, drop acid, and go berserk. He doesn't care. So it's up to the rest of the world to take action or get out of the way.
Well, of course, up until Trump, it was only Kim Jong-un who had he was the one madman on the...
Trump had to get crazier than Kim Jong-un. That's why he went to visit him, so he could look him in the eye and say, okay, how crazy is this guy? I could out-crazy him. He's not as crazy as he thinks. I'm actually a lot crazier, and I got a bigger economy. We're going to frickin' out-crazy this guy. And he's, doing brilliantly well.
And of course, on the other hand, he's also been totally deranged toward our so-called allies, because if he's willing to do that to his allies, then the competitor nations like China, which he's trying to do a one-on-one trade deal and scare into basically fixing this trade deficit, right? So what better way than to just rampage your way across the world, insulting every one of your allies like Justin Trudeau and calling Europeans murderers, and and they're trying to make us schmucks. So of course, by the time you arrive in China, the guy's like, okay.
Right. Remember the last time we saw the head of China was at some conference saying, we're going to be the globalist superstar in the world economy, and forget America. They're all isolationists. They're going to become regional. They're going to become provincial. We're going to be the superstars of the global economy. And now he didn't realize that actually he's holding more than $1 trillion of American U.S. dollars that are about to become worthless because we've got a psycho in the White House. So the joke's on you, Z!
Well, it's very Game of Thrones-like. This is what you do in order to scare your competitors who might want your throne, is if you behead all your friends first before your enemies.
It makes a statement. It's a powerful statement. Powerful statement.
So the bill titled the United States Fair and Reciprocal Tariff Act would give Trump unilateral power to ignore the two most basic principles of the WTO and negotiate one-on-one with any country. The first is the most favored nation principle that stipulates countries can't set different tariff rates for different countries outside of free trade agreements. The second pertains to bound tariff rates, which are the tariff ceilings that each WTO country has already agreed to in previous negotiations. So of course, I think it's quite interesting that the U.S., if they exit WTO, it's kind of a symmetry to China entering the WTO under, was it under Nixon? So what?
Clinton.
Clinton, but they entered the global economy under Nixon, right when, as I said on the front, the madman policy began.
Right. It would be a nice bookend to kind of the centuries that we dominated in this country, and now we're going to be dominating the 21st century because we've got the bigger nut, we've got the bigger psycho, we've got the guy who's willing to genuinely push the button. Okay, China, so don't fight, don't, then we're not going to do it. Don't be a schmata, don't be a schmuck. We got the button, we're going to push it. No, without question, China. Without doubt.
He's our own Dr. Strangelove.
He's a Dr. Strangelove of presidents, which is a good thing.
Trump.
You got to be out there, lead. Lead by leading. Be out there. Don't pretend to be crazy.
He should drop in on the Nato summit. I guess it's on Monday. He should drop in. No, his meeting with Putin is. He should ride in on a missile.
Right. Yahoo! Yahoo! That's a great entrance. What a genius this guy is. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back, I'll be talking to a 15-year-old kid who's probably going to take over the world. So don't go away. Stay right there. Welcome back to the Kaiser Report. I'm Max Kaiser. Time now to turn to Oliver Morris, who is a Python developer and who is 15 years old. Oliver, welcome to the Kaiser Report.
Thank you for having me, Max.
It's great to see you. We saw you up in Dublin at MoneyConf, and we got to meet you. We know that you've been developing Maxcoin for a few years. And I understand it, you, when 8 years old, first saw Kaiser Report, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you started to get into crypto.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, walk me through what were the steps? In other words, okay, you're watching Kaiser Report. You're like, okay, this guy Max is like, he's obviously insane, but Stacy seems like she's normal.
Yeah.
So I'll keep watching. And then, oh, crypto, what's that? So then,
doing research.
Yeah. How do you get into crypto from just what happened at that moment?
So I researched on Bitcoin and understanding of Bitcoin and the blockchain. And then, well, 8 years old, I didn't get too much into it until I was about 11 or 12. But I obviously knew about it back then. And I was only 8. That's when I was doing the gaming, and I was more into gaming and not programming at all. But I have, so from the last 3 or 4 years, I've been into Bitcoin and development. But my way I got into Bitcoin was through Chris Ellis. And I tweeted to him once I saw him on the Kaiser Report in 2016, talking about his full node Raspberry Pi project.
That's right. He was very big into getting nodes out there on the Raspberry Pi. And the Raspberry Pi is a
little miniature computer that stores all its memory on a micro SD card.
There's a lot of inputs, outputs, and ports and stuff.
Yeah.
It's got all, you can stick your keyboard, Ethernet, you can it's all in a little Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
Chris Ellis has always been a big name in the space, getting people into crypto. And then you started to learn Python. Was that hard?
So me learning Python, I was programming with another developer and also Chris, and so we were pretty much teaching each other about Python, and I was learning from him the Bitcoin Raspberry Pi and installing Bitcoin, and then I also wrote bash scripts for installing Bitcoin on the Raspberry Pis.
And how much do you watch like YouTube and stuff? Like, is that part of this like self-autodidactic learning process?
I learned Python off YouTube, like loads of different tutorials on Python, the basics, the intermediate, and advanced in Python. And so I just learned from the basics, and then obviously Bitcoin on YouTube is not too much. When I was first getting into it in 2014 or 2015, but it's more now. But I was thinking, obviously, writing more videos or teach people about the Bitcoin.
What is Python?
Python is a programming language. It was written in the 90s, and it's a really, really good language. It's got so many different libraries for writing websites, and I do a lot of the Bitcoin Python libraries for writing, like using the Bitcoin blockchain, and you grabbing all the blockchain data from the blocks, so block hash, the Merkle root, the transaction hash, and all the other stuff that's in a block.
There are a number of other coins out there, so-called altcoins. And, of course, Maxcoin is one of them. You're big into the Maxcoin space. We'll talk about that in a second. But tell me about this altcoin market, because it seems like it's a place to kind of experiment, right?
I've kind of written my own coin. Well, I have forked Litecoin before. I didn't launch it or anything like that, and I was just messing around with the main.c++ file, looking at each of the sort of hash genesis block, the genesis block, and all the info within that file. So I was experimenting on how a blockchain is created. And I've also written Python code working with the algorithm SHA-256 and SHA-3, and kind of just hashing lines of code, and just released it on my own GitHub.
For people who don't know what GitHub is, tell them?
GitHub is an open source platform for releasing your code, and so it's for free. You can open source your code for the code that you've written to upload, so people can download it or view it online.
What's amazing to me is that up until recently, the whole world of engineering and technology and developing expertise in all this required one to go to university, to study quite diligently, to go into the lab and experiment. But here you are, you're starting at 8, you're now 15, and you're involved with open source. You've got all the information you need on YouTube, and you're programming altcoins, and you're looking at Bitcoin. So you've imagined and built your own world. Do you feel like that, or are you so immersed in it now that it just seems completely normal?
I suppose, yeah, when you speak to other people and they say, what is that? And then you kind of have to try and explain. I mean, you kind of feel how much you actually know, or you kind of, so writing or code, or also about being in university. I would have to go to university to study this, but being homeschooled, I've been able to study it for the last 3 or 4 years and be dedicated. And
right, so on that homeschool point, I was talking to your dad, Simon, and in fact, he recognized that this was a passion of yours, and it would be years before they had it in school.
Yeah.
So he homeschooled you, and you just have immersed yourself in this, and now you are fully dedicated to it. What are the next programs or languages, or what's next for you to learn?
preferably C or C++, so I can get more into actually building on the blockchain with the actual source code of like Maxcoin or Bitcoin and other altcoins, so I can actually understand the actual source code of the blockchain. I understand the actual, like say, Genesis block or the hashing algorithm, and also the different transaction hashes, but actually programming actually with the blockchain for learning a language like C++, I think that's my next goal.
For somebody who says, Oliver, tell me about Maxcoin, why is it so great? What do you say?
So Maxcoin is, I say, more secure than a Bitcoin, or using SHA-free and Schnorr signatures and quantum resistant. But yeah, but I don't know, it's hard to explain.
Aside from just being associated with Max Kaiser, which of course gives it an incredible cachet globally, and not only in the crypto space, but in the local population of humans here on planet Earth, aliens traveling through space. You can travel through time with Maxcoin. You can go through Stacy's not going to help you.
I was limiting him. Just don't him.
Only joking. No.
Yeah.
So, but you like Maxcoin, and you think it's something worthy to work on.
Also, the team as well, I think, is really good. So
Who's on the team?
David Serrano, Joe Zan, Alex Atomina, loads of other really good developers.
I think there's a meetup in the fall.
Oh, yeah?
In Portugal.
Portugal.
Didn't you get the memo on that?
Yeah, I did. I think it's in September, isn't it?
I think so. We got to work on that.
Yeah,
big meetup.
Big meetup, yeah.
Down in Portugal on Maxcoin. So are people surprised when they learn that you're 15 years old, or am I missing some kind of thing going on?
I suppose what David said is it's not ageism, and it's also not, obviously, my intelligence or my age is, I suppose David didn't believe me, and I suppose even probably Stacey didn't believe me when I said I'm 15 years old, but when I really got to know me, I suppose then they realised I'm 15 years old, but it's kind of a shock to some people.
Yeah, I didn't believe it myself. Stacey was saying, oh, Oliver Morris, watched a show when he was 8. But, you know, people do come up to us and say, we like the show, it's changed our lives to some degree, or we got crypto and really is a big influence on us. But this is like a new thing for us, where someone who is like 8 and has now seemingly been directed, it's going someplace that we have some kind of influence on. Where are you taking us? Where are we going? Where am I headed? What's going on?
Mars. No, the future, or the future of crypto. Oh.
Well, I mean, like, I feel so overwhelmed at times, Oliver. This whole crypto space is so big and ever-changing. And you've got the youth, and your brain is still fresh. I'm, like, decrepit and old, and I can barely get through a day without dribbling on myself. What can I look forward to?
I suppose my intelligence, or also the future of I could teach you programming maybe, or I suppose, I don't know about if you'd want to learn that with.
Well, if you say that's the thing to do,
Yeah.
You have a lot of confidence. Where does that come from? Where do you get your confidence from? Is it just in the, where is it?
I've been singing or performing, I suppose, on stage, doing singing since I was 3 years old. So I suppose confidence since I was 3 or 4 years old for all this time. And then doing the World Crypto Network or be on the show with Chris back in 2016, I was able to talk more, so it's got the confidence for me to...
I noticed that scar on your, not a scar, but a bruise on your face from kickboxing.
Kung fu.
Is that how you, Kung Fu?
Yeah.
Is that how you unwind now? A little Kung Fu, a little programming?
I've been doing Kung Fu for about almost 6 years now, and I'm a black belt, and I do Tai Chi as well, so I do meditation as a good way to unwind or relax.
You're a renaissance, man.
Yeah.
All this is all happening at the same time. Well, I mean, I'm completely gobsmacked. The more we talk, the more I'm wondering, are you some kind of vision from the future? I mean, you're like a hologram or a shapeshifter. Are you, in fact, the quantum particle sent from the future to test the quantum resistance of Maxcoin? Whoa! Oh, I'm back. Well, fabulous. Oliver, let's go on to the next question then, shall we? You hear about people in the tech space like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, and they totally transform the industry. They're visionaries. Do you think you might be following in their footsteps, or is that just being over the top?
I suppose not. I suppose the influence or being able to teach other people Yeah, I'd really like to teach more people in the space, maybe even younger people as well, if they were interested or actually would dedicate more to it like I have. But yeah, I suppose I like to be quite a good influencer in the space.
Right, so you're going to use your powers of influence to educate.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty noble.
Yeah.
What's going on? Like, you just have such a great presence about you. It's very impressive. We've got Maxcoin going down. We got conferences coming up, more and more of them. When you travel around the world, do you look out for folks and say, hey, they're getting into crypto, they're getting into Bitcoin, you're looking for adoption? Do you try to, tell people about it on your travels? Or do you consider yourself like a disciple of the Satoshi in that way?
Yeah, I do try and tell other people about the Bitcoin or crypto, but a lot of people, suppose, not really interested or they don't understand it, or you try and explain it, and then as I was trying to help other people, it's hard to explain it. Also, just teaching Python, all the basics, and I've known so many different people that in school studying just Python or programming in general, but they kind of get bored. And I suppose if you get into blockchain or you have the right influencers to help inspire you more to learn more, then you might carry on learning.
Yeah, I think we were talking to Jimmy Song, right? Jimmy Song has a program. He's developing programmers and doing a lot of creating programmers, and I think probably get you into one of the Jimmy Song sessions coming up soon. And that's a real credit to the programming industry. Hey, Jimmy, we got one for you here. But anyway, we got to go. Thanks for being on the Kaiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
All righty. That's going to do it for this edition of the Kaiser Report with me, Max Kaiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Oliver Morris. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's Kaiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.